All right, it looks like we're live here now, I think. Good evening, everyone. It looks like there's quite a few of you here already. So I've started a little earlier than usual. Grow Mechanic, Joseph Mario Morick says, good evening, Mario. Let's go through there's a lot of questions here. We're going to look at, well, one of the things we're going to look at is the UK buy-to-let market. I think it's an important thing to look at. Actually, it was one of the videos, one of my first videos in late 2015. I spoke about that, and we're going to go through that today, but we're going to wait until 9 o'clock. Brave Spender says shrinkflation is so bad. Our local Dr. Pepper is now Nurse Pepper. Okay, that's a good one. Elias Jones says, I'm a landlord, but also debt-free. Oh, yeah, that's a good thing. And I'm not slagging off buy-to-let here when that's not my intention in this live stream. And of course, we're going to do the usual Q&A. So you guys can ask me as many questions as possible, and I'll try to answer them as best as possible. It's tough sometimes to go through all the comments in all the videos. So this is a good time for it. Elias Jones says 63% of people surveyed said inflation was not a major problem compared to 137% who said it was a major problem. A few jokes early on. Grow Mechanic is here. Hi, Grow Mechanic. Brady Girding. Hi, Brady. Jeff Gamble, can't wait for today's history lessons. Grow Mechanic says Moneconomics. Urban Sombrero, thoughts on China canceling precious metals trading from tomorrow. I saw the tweet about that, and I actually retweeted it, but I looked into it. I don't think it's something that we should really be too excited about. I think this has been happening for the last few months. I think what China's trying to do is to make sure that private investors don't get burnt using leverage in the gold or precious metals market because they think it's a bit volatile. I'm not sure if it'll have a huge impact. I don't know how that affects bank trading or if it's just for, let's say, retail investors. So I wouldn't really put much focus on it. I try to delete the retweet because I looked further into it, and I think that guy who tweeted that out is making a big deal out of it, I think. Brady Girding asking about the BRICS nation, the timeline. Well, I'm not sure what you mean by timeline for what. I mean, the BRICS nation, they've been aligning themselves for over a decade. And it seems to be accelerating. We've got BRICS Plus now, a lot of other nations within the global south, so to speak, joining the BRICS. Redefine hayseed appellation. Thank you for your super chat. Matt Bittner, how was hyperinflation fixed in the Weimar Republic? Well, you can't fix hyperinflation. Hyperinflation is like the end game of a currency. It was fixed. I guess the situation was fixed. They had to bring in a new currency after the Reichsmark collapsed. And they actually backed it on rent, real estate, property rents, and it kind of worked. Anything was better than the hyperinflation. But once hyperinflation starts, it's very hard to, well, it's impossible, I would say, to end it because it's the total loss of confidence in the currency. Riqua from Montreal says, bonjour, Mario, or Montréal, like you say it in French. John Lord, evening, Mario, Billy from Manchester. Hope you've both keeping cool. Well, yeah, last great day of heat in 2022. I think tomorrow is also supposed to be quite hot. Another super chat here. Thank you. There's only one way. I was told by a boomer on a boat today I can't swim in Rutland water. I have to be with all the plebs. Not sure. Not sure, yeah, what that's about. I'll show you where Billy is. I'll take the camera. There he is. Can you see him? He's been really uncomfortable today, but he's finally peaceful there, asleep. We're gonna have to leave him there. So that was Billy. Music lover, lover forever. A point of interest: houses where I live have never needed for sale boards, as they have sold within days, but there has now been 2 houses with for sale boards up for 5 weeks. Yeah, that's not a good sign, I guess. Hi, Andrew Watson. Thank you for the feedback. Over here says, New York City Mayor Adams angry that Texas is sending immigrants up to New York. Could it be that Adams declared New York a sanctuary? It was a sanctuary city, right? Yeah. It's backfiring on him. Thomas Moran, yeah, we're good. I guess you just saw where Billy was with the camera. So he's here next to me on the floor, and he's finally fallen asleep, or he's just woken up now. But he's been kind of uncomfortable with the heat. Raymondo, you're welcome. Hey, Stephen Fleming, nice to see you. Indy is here as well. Jam Silver from Toronto. Tayeb Hussein, the clowns who run the Bank of England, are they the root cause of high inflation? Not just the clowns at the Bank of England, but the clowns in government. Yeah, they work together. The Bank of England is not independent. They've manipulated interest rates down to 0 for over a decade in order to keep the government borrowing and spending. And that's the whole thing. So yeah, there are clowns everywhere, unfortunately, not just the Bank of England. Brave Spender says Burger King can't get staff in Spain. Well, is that really a big problem? I don't think so. Morgan Maristeri from Sverige or Sweden. Indy says, my husband is listening for the first time and says hello. I say hello, Indy's husband. Yeah, I think winter is going to be the other way around. I think people will be wearing a lot of layers to keep warm because of energy prices going up. Not just in the UK, but in Europe as well. I saw that Germany is saying that they need to cut back on energy use by 20% in order to avoid rationing and blackouts. But I would say cutting back on energy by 20% is rationing, which is ridiculous. Bratislav Mitolski from Germany. Picky Ricky says, waiting for my next rent increases here. Mr. Ashford, could anyone other than central banks produce enough currency to suppress the bond market? Well, the thing is, I guess commercial or, the primary dealer banks, they could buy a lot of bonds. They do fractional reserve. The problem is they don't have a backstop. The central bank can just keep creating trillions of reserves to buy the bonds and keep interest rates artificially low. Um, I guess the flip side of that is if the bond prices start going down and yields start going up, the central bank's balance sheet could go really south, and you could argue that central banks could go bust, and maybe that's when they'll have to use their gold card. They'll allow the price of gold to go multiple times higher in order to pad their balance sheets if they have gold, of course. Bank of Canada doesn't have any gold. I don't think they tax firewood. I mean, you can get firewood. You go chop if you live in have some land. You can chop the firewood. I don't think they'd be taxing you. Mario, would you agree all the war rhetoric has calmed down this week? Yeah, I guess so. I guess so, but I don't think it's over. I just saw that 4 U.S. Congress members of Congress just flew to Taiwan today, and we'll have to see like how the Chinese react to that. Javi says, thanks to you, I have started my sovereign stack, aiming for 5% of the portfolio. All right, it's 9 o'clock. So let's talk a little bit about the main topic that I have here for the live stream. UK buy-to-let bubble bursting, question mark. As I said earlier, one of my first videos in December 2015 was about a UK, he was called the UK buy-to-let king. And I spoke about this man. He's actually in Kent, near to where I am in London. And he's called Fergus Wilson, Britain's most iconic buy-to-let investor. And it's interesting that this video I did, I think it was December 2015. I did the video, didn't think much of it. I was just starting to make videos. And I looked a few months later and I got like 20,000 views. So this guy, yeah, as you can see here, December 2015, Fergus Wilson, Britain's most iconic buy-to-let investor, sells up all 900 houses, sells up all 900 houses for 250 million. So the reason he did it is because they did very well from buy-to-let, but he says the former maths teacher who built the property empire with wife Judith says landlords had become an easy target for a tax grab. And I think he's right. And I went through the article and he was talking about stamp duty and also like income tax. They're changing a lot of the taxation. And you might think, well, he got out too early, this guy. But I think it probably took him a year or two to sell all those houses. So by 2017, 2018, he probably liquidated everything. And I would say that he's probably sitting quite pretty right now, especially not just because of new taxes that are coming in. I think it used to be that you weren't taxed, you got a tax break on your interest if you had a mortgage. A lot of buy-to-let businesses, they're highly leveraged. That was cut off. So that's probably made a difference. But now what's really happening is the interest rate is going up very quickly and mortgage rates are going up. And I think that's going to hurt a lot of the buy to let. Ryan Morosi, do you think the China bank run is serious enough to create a bank run in the US? If you take the fiat out, would you just buy metal? I think a bank run is possible anywhere in the world because banking systems, not just in China and the US, are highly leveraged. The US is actually a little better than Europe, but yes, I would definitely not leave more than the insured amount, like FDIC or FCSC in the UK. And I would think about getting metals outside the system, or you can keep some cash as well under the mattress, so to speak. So let's look at some of the questions here. Alpha 123, when housing bubble in UK is bursting? Yeah, I mean, that question has been asked many times. Of course, they reflated the housing bubble after the 08-09 collapse. Will they be able to reflate? I mean, the real estate market is still fairly strong here, but I have a feeling it's going to weaken a lot over the next 12 months. We've got the winter, we got the cost of living crisis, we got inflation still rising, we got energy prices going through the roof, we got food prices going through the roof, and people are not going to be able to afford a lot of their costs, even mortgage costs. A lot of people who you can fix your mortgage here, but most people fix it for 2 or 5 years. And I think last year, a lot of people took very low mortgages because rates are really low, almost zero, the Bank of England rate, and I think mortgage rates were 1. But next year, they're coming due, and I think people are going to get a shock. It's not just energy prices that are going up. So the other thing as well, I think the UK property market already has gone down in terms of dollar and even gold. So the nominal prices might be high, but let's say 10 years ago, or 7 years ago, the pound was $1.40, $1.50. Now it's $1.20. So we could actually see that nominal house prices remain quite steady, but if the currency, let's say, drops to 1 versus the dollar, a house that was £1 million, let's say 6 years ago, that would have been worth, let's say, $1.5 million. But if the pound goes to 1 and that house, let's say, is still worth £1 million or 1.25, it's going to be a lot less in dollar terms, if you know what I mean, and it will be a lot less in gold terms as well. A bit of water, cold water. Echo thinks buy-to-let investors will simply pass on extra mortgage costs to renters. People need somewhere to live after all. That's true, but some people won't be able to rent if rent prices go up, rentals go up. They might need to move in with a family member or someone else. So I don't think it's going to be that simple. There's an article as well. Where is it? Oh yeah, it's here in the Telegraph. And it's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it. And I guess this applies to Australia as well. I'm not sure how big the buy-to-let is there. Landlords left scrambling for loans as banks call deals. I think one of you made a comment that they're not really landlords, they're debt lords, because a real landlord probably doesn't need a mortgage. Lenders withdrew more than 1,000 products in the past 2 months. So yeah, it's going to get harder and harder, as you can see. The number of buy-to-let mortgage has plunged by a third. These are the deals that they have. And these are the rates. So they have 2-year fix and 5-year fix. So here in the UK, unlike in the US, there's very little, I'm not sure you can fix a mortgage for 30 years. It's usually 2 or 5 years. So you see, end of last year was around 3%. And now we're approaching, 4.5. So that's not good. And the other thing I think is happening, the cost of living crisis, all the other expenses going up is going to make a dent on that. Matthew says, do you think US Fed can prevent a market crash after second price hike? What do you mean by second price hike? I'm not sure you mean rate hike. It's not their second rate hike. They've made several rate hikes. I'm not sure if they're out of the markets are out of the woods. There's a lot of debate whether the bounce in the stock market since the middle of June is a bear market rally, or if we're starting a new bull market. It could be a new bull market. How could we have a bull market if we're in like kind of a recession? Well, maybe the Fed is going to pivot and is going to inflate like mad, and we could have a runaway hyperinflation or the crack of boom. Who knows? Alan Meyer, how much gold would you need to buy a house in 3 to 4 years? Well, that's a real, it's a good question, but what kind of house, where, which location, which currency, which country? I mean, I think in the UK, the lowest it's been in the last 50 years for the average house price is 90 ounces of gold. Lightning for thee. Do you think if enough renters don't or can't afford rent as times become worse, does the property owner eventually sell the property? Well, that is possible because let's say you could have a property and it could be empty and you can't rent it, or yeah, and then you need the money, you need the cash, you could sell it. I think the other thing they're doing, they're changing, for example, they're allowing tenants now to have short-term contracts, which means they can leave anytime they want. It doesn't have to be a 6-month contract. So landlords are going to be in a tougher position, especially like in the university places where a lot of landlords, people have bought properties to let to students. Let's say a student starts the term, rents a room in one of the houses. Prior to now, they had like a 6 or a 12-month contract, and I remember that because my daughter rented a place. And but now the student can decide to just leave whenever they want, so it's going to hurt them more as well. These kinds of regulations. Over here it says, do you agree the future is humbling? I'm not sure what that means, but I think what you mean is that the older you get, the more you realize that you don't really know that much. You're always learning things. So maybe that's what it is. Matt Bittner, if UK landlords are getting screwed over by their government, it's time for capital flight to the United States. You can get a mortgage all day long. I don't think it's that easy, capital flight. Not that easy because these people are small, they're like mom and pop businesses sometimes. So Are they going to get a green card? Can they immigrate to the US? It's not that simple. Plus, I don't think you can go to the US if you haven't been fully, that might have changed. It's not that simple. I think the other reason why I think, and I said in the beginning that I'm not slagging off buy to let. I think it, in the long term, it's a good thing to do, or just own property, real estate, because it's bricks and mortar. It holds its value versus paper money. But the other reason I think it's going to slow down this buy to let mania, it's a bit of a mania. Some people, of course, like that teacher, did very well from it. They were in the right place at the right time. But I think the fact that interest rates are going to keep rising, that's going to make a lot of people reassess what they do. They're going to maybe leave more money in the bank and get maybe a 4 or 5% interest, hopefully, even though rates haven't gone up that much. Instead of like the hassle of buying a property, taking a mortgage, and like running everything and getting bad tenants who destroy everything. So I think that's happening as well. Lori Smith, many people said we couldn't have major inflation without the velocity of money increasing. All of them have stopped talking about velocity. What are your thoughts on the velocity issue? Hi, Lori. Good question. Yeah, yes, one of them was Jim Rickards, and I have interviewed him here, and he's right about a lot of things, but I always said that it didn't matter because a lot of that money velocity was kept low because a lot of the money supply that was created through QE was kept within the banking system as because the Fed started paying interest on reserves after the '08 crisis. And the other thing as well, the amount of the money supply, let's say during lockdown and 2020, 21 went up so much and the economy shrunk. So it looked like there's no velocity. And yeah, I always said that it wasn't a good, that it wasn't a good indicator that told you that we wouldn't have rising prices. So yeah, I don't think, I think it's something we should ignore, money velocity. But I think when we move towards a loss of confidence or hyperinflation, crack a boom, yeah, velocity will go up. But I think it's more about the money supply. It's like Andrew Novak, thank you for your super chat. Have you read any of Carol Quigley? Yes, I have Tragedy and Hope. I haven't read the whole thing. Yeah, he was Bill Clinton's teacher at Georgetown. But yeah, back to money velocity. Let's say the way I look at it, the inflation is the increase in currency and money currency supply. So it dilutes the value of it. So it's almost like saying just because, let's say IBM issues 10 million shares, but the trading in IBM, the volume of trade doesn't go up. The value of the shares though have gone down. So it's the same thing. Money velocity is almost like the volume of trading of the currency. And just because there's a lot of trading doesn't mean to say that it's not losing. Just because there isn't a lot of trade doesn't mean to say it's not losing value. So that's how I see it. Echo, you know how you think how you think they Fed and DOE will pivot and start printing. Wouldn't that lower rates so buy to let wouldn't burst? That's possible. That's possible. They could try to keep it going. But in the meantime, interest rates are going up right now. So it could be too late. Who knows? Who knows? But the thing is, I think there are other aspects as well, not just the rates, as I said, but the uh, the cost of living. It's a good point, though. Just goes to show that it's not simple. Graham Devine, what's your time estimate on the crack up boom? It lasts about a month. I've researched. I think September, October, definitely by Christmas. Yeah, I mean the German one, I think kicked off in the summer of 1922, and by the end of 1923, the currency had collapsed. So it's a matter of months. It's not more than a year, I would say. And once it starts, it's there's no, if you aren't protected, you won't be able to protect yourself in terms of financially, I would say, if you hold a lot of the currency. Yeah. Yeah, the reverse repo, that's just like the banks because of regulatory reasons. And because the Federal Reserve has been raising rates, the repo rates, the banks, uh, they just lend the money to the Fed every day. Yeah, and the Fed keeps that as a reverse repo. Um, I think it's more to do with regulatory and maybe a little bit to do with the fact that the banks are not comfortable with lending that money to the real economy. Huh. Someone asked if we convert to Islam, would interest rates go to zero? Well, the Islamic mortgages, they have what they call rent. So it's the same thing. They just changed the term from interest rate to rent. So it wouldn't go to zero. What will put a stop to precious metals price manipulation? Phoenix FP40. Well, the only thing that will put a stop to it, and I've said that, I made a video, I think, last week about that, is for the general public to uh, boycott the paper market. And the paper market are ETFs like GLD, SLV, even the Sprott ETF, I would say, and also boycott trading futures and buy the real thing. And if millions of or hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people start buying physical, you can bet the bullion banks are going to have to cover and maybe even go long. David Lennon, will commodity stocks keep up with hyperinflation? Yeah, I think, as I've said quite a few times in the last year or two, we're moving into a new paradigm. We've had 40 years, until recently, we've had 40 years of financialization where paper assets like stocks, bonds, derivatives have done really well, while commodities have stayed quite subdued. And I think now the world is moving into maybe at least, let's say, 5, 10 years, where real assets will be of more relative importance than paper assets, So yeah, in a hyperinflation, if you have commodities, you do very well. In Germany, a lot of farmers and people who produce real things, they were almost persecuted because they had wealth, and you can get a lot of credit in a hyperinflation if you have commodities. Scott 49,140. I've only got 13 ounces of silver, not sure how much I'll have before all this starts. All right, I mean, yeah, 13 ounces. I mean, still, it's a steal right now if you can get it for under $30 in the US. Buddha, shouldn't stocks be part of a portfolio along with gold and silver in a hyperinflation environment? Um, there are stocks that do well in a hyperinflation. And it's mostly to do with real assets, production of real goods. But I would say financial stocks, and even I mean, technology stocks, I'm not too sure how that will do. I have a feeling it won't do that well. But yeah, I have mining stocks and I have commodity stocks as well. But yeah, it's a small part of my holdings, but I think they will do very well if there is in a hyperinflation. Do central banks own silver? Beverly Smith? No, they don't. I think maybe the Russian central bank owns some silver. I read a story some years ago. They might own silver, but all the other ones I don't think have any silver. Not Joe King. Good evening, Mario. I hope you're well. Large spread in the FT regarding luxury watch market mainly due. Yeah, I saw that. But you know, luxury watch prices are still quite high compared to 3, 5 years ago. I think there was a little bit of a mini bubble last year, so they're coming down, but they're still above the previous peak. It's a sign as well that probably China is not doing well economically. Thank you, Echo Echo, for your super chat. Do you think silver might be have increased industrial demand following Biden's secret package to push green energy? Well, yeah, it could. Silver is important for the ESG green agenda, I guess. Not just silver, but I think uranium as well. They're looking to push for uranium production in the US. So, and I'm not saying I agree with the green agenda, but it's being pushed very hard. So you might as well benefit from it by having silver. Thomas Moran, I heard a lot of small businesses are going under it in England because the energy prices and everything has also gone up so much. Yeah, and I was actually I put an article aside to show you guys the small and medium size businesses or enterprises. They're having a lot of trouble, and that's another reason why I think like buy to let and the housing market will be in trouble in the coming 6 months. Uh, here we go. It's in the FT. Small business owners worry whether they will make it through the winter. Spiraling energy prices, increasing wage bills, and higher raw material prices costs are all adding pressure. And of course, they're blaming most of it. They're saying it's driven primarily by Russia's squeeze on gas supplies. but I think we only have ourselves to blame in Europe for that by putting sanctions on Russia. And it's a lot more than just Russia, as you probably know the way I feel. But what's worrying about this is this here. Spiraling energy costs are just one of a number of pressures weighing on the UK's 5.5 million small businesses. This winter would be very grim. Uh, so 5.5 million is a lot of businesses. And as you see here, this is what I wanted to show you here. Uh, the upshot is that many SMEs, small, medium enterprises, which together employ 3/5 of the UK workforce, will probably collapse without government intervention. And again, this fallacy that government intervention helps. But what I thought was really significant there is that small and medium-sized businesses are really important for the economy, and that's why I think we're gonna go into a severe recession, if not depression. And I think they're gonna try to pump up the credit again. And yeah, maybe interest rates might go down, but they might not. Investors might get spooked and start selling bonds. Who knows? Thanks. I sell e-bikes, which aren't cheap. An awful lot of so-called rich people trying to sell them back to us. Bottom end product not moving at all. Hmm. Over here, Mario, is it possible that retail will survive this Christmas holiday season? Will the consumer be at an advantage or disadvantage? Uh, I think there will be a lot of retail that won't survive Christmas. Whether it could be mixed. You could see things that you might not be able to get anymore because retail has gone out of business, but you might see some retailers that are struggling mark their prices down for things. So who knows? It's a bit mixed. You can't say it either way, I would say. Echo, any news from Andy Shackman about the very rich lady? No, no news about further purchases. Graham Hobbs says a report 2 weeks ago said the average pub would have energy bills of 100,000 per year now. Yeah, I saw in that article that I just showed you, they're talking about events business, and apparently their budget for utilities they've gone up from like sixfold, and they're still running, but they're close to being like have to wind down the business. It's very serious, and it could get worse this winter. It's already pretty bad now. T. Taylor, thank you for your super chat. Over the years I've been with you, the knowledge I've gained in economics have been priceless. Thank you, Thomas. Oh, you're welcome, Thomas. Thank you. I mean, I have to thank all of you, Thomas, and for all your questions and your and sometimes you guys give me information that helps as well. So it's a two-way street, I would say. A bit thirsty. Tricky Dicky Mario, when electric gets turned off, will the people be outside the front doors clapping on Thursday nights? Yeah, that's a reference to during that disease a couple of years ago. I never did that. They were going out at 8 o'clock on Thursday clapping for the NHS. I never did that. So Mark Starr says the Bank of England looks set to become the first major central bank to sell some of its government bonds it purchased. I'm not sure. I don't think they've sold anything yet. I think the Fed has sold a little bit, not too much. They're dragging their feet. We've still got plenty of time. Mr. Frisky Whiskey. Tragic thing is that the UK's economy is about 70% service based. Yeah, it's the same thing with the US. And I think that's one of the big problems of the last 40 years because credit, money and credit has been so easy and cheap. And it's destroyed the manufacturing base. We've outsourced as well to other countries. And the only reason we've kept going is because things getting cheaper and cheaper, like mortgages up until last year, almost down to zero. So yeah, I think the last year and a half, 2 years is the last hurrah, so to speak, of this credit-induced economy. And it has totally, how can I say, unbalanced the economy. It's become a financialized economy dependent on borrowing, services, credit, accounting, city of London, no manufacturing or yeah. And I think with energy prices rising, other costs rising, input costs rising, we're going to see a lot of this service industry, hence the economy get decimated. But maybe that's what we need to see a rebalancing, unfortunately. Killed Sasquatch. Any chance of moving, adding your podcast to Rumble? I do put my videos on Rumble. So yeah, they're there already. Where's the dog? Well, he's really hot because it's really hot here today. Is like we've had a heat wave. I'll show you where he is. I'll move the camera. You can see there he is. He's fine. He's been very uncomfortable all day, but he's finally laid down on the floor and he's asleep now. Helsinki, if silver price reaches $370, like some have been saying, do you think most local bullion dealers will be able to do buybacks at such prices? Yeah, bullion dealers, yeah, they can do buybacks. It's like saying, can I guess some might not be able to, but the thing is, bullion dealers, they buy and sell, so they'll have people selling and buying. It's like saying, oh, can a car dealer sell Rolls Royces or Bentleys? So yeah, they can sell cheap cars and expensive cars. So, and maybe if silver goes to those levels, it also means the currency is like become trash, and you might have to actually exchange your silver for whatever you want, kind of a barter, even though I don't consider it barter because I think silver is money and currency. Amir Maseed, really enjoyed your climate change video. The UK needs to urgently open access to fracking oil, gas, and coal. The faster get manufacturing running quicker, we can be self-sufficient. Yeah, I think there's a guy, he was like the Brexit minister, Lord Frost is his name. He thinks along those lines, but I'm not sure the people that are running to become prime minister think along those lines. I think it's a lot of it has got to do with this Climate Change Act of 2008, which makes it the law that we have to eliminate uh, carbon emissions by 80% by the year 2050. And that's what does it. They need to maybe abolish the Climate Change Act if things are going to get back to normal. St. Louis 9 says Billy Bullion is resting up for a major silver buy. Yes, DMC, the dealers, they do hedge their trades. Birds Aloud, in the UK, the media are reporting a significant rise in the use of cash. Do you use cash, Mary? Yeah, I use cash regularly. I like taking cash out, but I use my card as well sometimes. Yeah, I spoke about that recently, and in the post office bank, I think there's been the most withdrawal ever in history, almost £1 billion in 1 month in cash. Do you think the Treasury regret issuing so many RPI-linked gilts? Probably because that's going to cost them a lot. I was actually looking at an article that I wanted to show you guys. So that's good you asked that question. Here in the UK's debt and welfare payments bill set to soar by more than £50 billion. Forecast of extra annual costs will be fiscal dilemma for next prime minister juggling tax and spending. And they talk about here that a lot of our debt is linked to the CPI, is what you touched upon. Findings forecast that debt service are likely to almost double next year from 50 billion to 95 billion, because 500 billion of the UK's public debt is linked to the CPI. So yeah, I think they're probably going to come to regret it, but that's politicians and bureaucrats for you. Evola sunglasses. Would you interview Peter Lilly if he was available? It's funny because I did that video on the climate change, the real culprit for the energy crisis, which is the Climate Change Act of 2008. And I saw he was one of the only 3 MPs who voted against it. And I did think about it. Oh, maybe I should interview him. Yeah, I would be prepared to interview him if he wanted to come on my channel. I don't know if he would want to come on my channel, but who knows? I think he's in the House of Lords now. And maybe I'll send him an email to his office. Echo, yeah, I think you're right. It should say RPI, but I think they're trying to change that. They're going to change it to the CPI because they know the RPI is going to come out. Yeah, by the way, we've got our CPI data and RPI data coming out on Wednesday in the UK. I think the CPI is expected to rise to 9.8, and the RPI, which is the retail price index, which includes rents and council tax, that's expected to rise to 12%. You can see why they want to change how they index those bonds to, they want to change it to the CPI because it's going to cost them less than the RPI. They might have changed it already, though, Echo. I'm not sure. Josh Reporter, do you have a plan to buy real estate with gold and silver? Well, the way I think is if what I think happens we have currency collapse all around the world, I think gold and silver are gonna become very valuable. Whether I have, and I do think about what you said there, maybe buying another property. Whether I have to use the gold or the silver to buy it, it doesn't matter. Even if it's the currency, if there's a new currency, or even the hyperinflated or the severely inflated currency, as long as I can exchange the gold, let's say, for that currency to buy the property. So what I'm more concerned is about the purchasing power of gold and silver. And I think, yes, it will do very well when the currencies go down the drain. Whether, yeah, who knows? People might only take gold and silver if they want to sell their property. They might not take paper anymore. So you could be right. But we'll see what happens. I just think if you have gold and silver, you're in a good position, if that's your goal. Lily Robbins says maybe buy outside of London, or maybe even outside this country. Who knows? LG, will Saudis end petrodollar? Well, yeah, I'm not sure if they're going to end it, but I think they want to have an alternative to it. And I just saw that one of the biggest, richest men in Saudi Arabia, he's been buying Russian energy companies ever since the war in the Ukraine started. And we're seeing that China as well is working closely with Saudi Arabia. So yeah, and the other thing as well, I heard, I think someone, I think it was Alistair McLeod, he was on King World News. He said that the West is pushing this green agenda, this net zero carbon emissions, and the Saudis see that as a customer that's not reliable. So I think that's why they're moving towards China, Russia, and Asia for their business. Not even because they they don't like us or whatever, or it's just that we're not reliable. We're trying to move away from buying petroleum or oil. So yeah, you could be right. And it's interesting that the U.S. doesn't see that this as a problem. It will be a major problem, and that's why a lot of dollars are going to flow back into the U.S. and that's going to cause a massive rise in prices. It's going to inflate the money supply in the U.S. and they're going to call that inflation, but the inflation's already been baked in the cake for 51 years tomorrow. Tomorrow is the 51st anniversary of when President Nixon suspended the convertibility of the dollar into gold at a fixed rate. And it was supposed to be, well, it was temporary, but temporary can be a long time, as we've seen. Yeah, ever since then, we've had inflation. So, and people don't understand inflation. That's why I keep going on about it. What we're getting now is not inflation. What we're getting now is rising consumer prices. Prior to the consumer prices, inflation was flowing into financial assets, and that kind of hid the inflation. And those people who think, and some people are saying now that inflation has peaked and that it was transitory just because you had 1 month where the month-on-month change of CPI was zero. Now they're saying that there's no inflation. I mean, they're going to be wrong, in my opinion. That's my bet. Silver Task says, can we get the like numbers up a bit more for Mario and Billy? Thank you, Silver Task. Is the Russian and Chinese Navy powerful enough to protect Middle East oil producers versus the US Navy? Well, I'm not sure about that, but yeah, the US Navy is probably the most powerful on the planet, but I think the Russian and the Chinese Navy have grown quite a bit, especially the Chinese, and maybe they will use pipelines to get the oil across to Russia or China from Saudi Arabia. Dr. Cash 7, thank you. Classical inflation has already been baked in the cake. Yeah, you're right. And unfortunately, 99.9% of Wall Street economists and politicians don't know that. And that's why they've been wrong about the last 18 months. Even Jay Powell, when asked in Congress last year about the exorbitant increase in the M2, the congressperson said, don't you think that's going to cause rising prices or inflation? He said, oh, no, that has nothing to do with inflation. So, yeah, to say that inflation or rising prices have peaked when they've only raised rates to like 2.5%, when the CPI is rising almost at double digits, to say that that will stop that, I think is very naive, to be honest. Frank Kavidja, thank you for your super chat. He says, thank you. Gordon Hamilton says, if I was young again, I would buy a small camper van. Just would have want to pay, wouldn't have wanted to, would have want to pay a mortgage on outrageous rent prices. Amir Masid asks about where to store gold and cash. Well, yeah, that's up to you to decide. Yeah, it's a tough one. You have to find a reputable dealer, for example, who might store the precious metals, or you could keep it at home as well, but you have to make sure, yeah, you hide it well, I would say. But the other thing as well, if you leave it in the bank as cash, look what's happened in China. I think they, look what happened with Celsius, the cryptocurrency bank. They froze accounts. They can freeze accounts very easy. So everything is dangerous now. You just have to assess the risk. Mr. Boston says, make sure you travel with jewelry. They can't tax or charge it. Yeah, I agree. A lot of one of the reasons why the wealthy Chinese bought a lot of the Swiss watches is that it was a way for capital flight, because they have a limit of how many dollars you can take out of China or dollar equivalent. So you could buy a $200,000 Patek Philippe watch, and when you go through security in the airport in China, the guy doesn't know that watch is worth that much. So you're taking out all that money. Echo, why does Argentina have so much massive price increases? Well, because they printed too much money. That's why. Just like everyone else. Matt Bittner, you can seal PMs in PVC pipe and bury it in the ground. That's an option as well. LG, Matt, yeah, says Spain fast tracking LNG pipelines for the rest of Europe. Yeah, I read about that. It's supposed to take 8 to 9 months to do that, but I don't think it will be enough. They'll be able to maybe provide them with a little bit of extra gas, but they have to consume that gas too. So I think that's just propaganda, really. If Europe really wanted to get things back to normal, they would have done it a long time. We would have like not provoked Russia to go into the Ukraine. We could be negotiating and going back to normal, but unfortunately, I think that's never going to happen. And things have changed, and Europeans and people here in the UK are going to suffer the coming winter. I think we're suffering already from the rising prices. What is the difference between M1 and M2? M1 is just banknotes and cash. They're notes and cash. And yes, and traveler's checks. And M2 include time deposits, which is savings account. That's mainly the difference, M1, M2. Paul Travers says proposal for energy companies to get massive bank loans. Yeah, I saw that. It's the current chancellor. He was the vaccine minister. I forgot his name. He's a Pakistani or Iraqi guy, and yeah, in the UK. And he said that the government should lend £9 billion to the energy companies so they can keep the prices capped. It's not going to work. It's more government spending, more inflation. These people have no clue. It's just they keep making the same mistakes. And I guess it's not just here as well in the US. They've got the Inflation Reduction Act where they're going to spend a lot more, billions and billions of dollars. Here, I saw that Keir Starmer, the leader of the opposition, he's calling for government to cap prices. But Theresa May capped energy prices in 2018. And that's why 31 energy providers last year went bust, because energy prices went, natural gas and oil prices went through the roof, and they couldn't raise prices because they were capped, and they all went bust. And that's why we have part of the problem now, that energy prices are so high. So they want to make the same mistake again. I guess, as Einstein said, it's the definition of insanity. You keep making the same mistakes over and over again, and that's why, unfortunately, I don't see things ending up well, and that's why I do think we're going to get a currency collapse, because people are going to lose complete faith and confidence in the people who are supposed to manage our currency, our economy, and everything else. Do you think this entire global S show is starting to look a bit 1984-ish? Yeah, aside from looking 1984-ish, it's starting to look very 1923-ish, which is Weimar. So I do agree. Matt Bittner says, I'm against subsidies most of the time, but subsidizing new nuclear reactors would probably be a good long-term investment. Well, governments don't invest, they spend. I don't think governments should be involved in any industry. If that industry is a good one, they shouldn't interfere. Or if it's a bad one, they shouldn't prop it up. I agree with you. Nuclear reactors are very cheap. Well, maybe not cheap, but they're a very good source of energy. They occupy a lot less space than the other alternative energies. I'm not sure if subsidy is the right thing, though. Maybe just creating a free environment for them, not regulating them as much. Joker Alpha, USD is well entrenched in markets. What would be the signs of loss of faith in the fiat currency? It would be a collapse against gold and silver. And that's why they've been suppressing it so much. USD is, or I guess you mean the dollar, is not really, the only reason it's looking good is because the other ones are even worse. But don't forget, the dollar is just it's just I owe you nothing, as I've said many times. And I have to thank John Exter for inventing that moniker, I owe you nothing dollar. But it's all about faith and confidence right now. Once faith and confidence go, even though the dollar is entrenched, it won't be entrenched anymore, and it can happen like that. Faith and confidence is very fickle. How close are we? I don't know. I think we're very close, though. Just one more question. Dumb Runner 1, do you think that the car you leased is logical conclusion of Klaus Schwab, you will nothing be happy, no issue with your purchase, but it fits World Economic Forum story? Not really, because the current car that I still have, we're gonna part exchange it. We haven't gotten the new car yet. I leased it as well when I bought that in 2010, but by 2012, I was able to pay it off. And I plan to pay this one off pretty soon as well. When maybe in about six months to a year. So in my case, hopefully, Klaus Schwab's philosophy won't apply. But yeah, I think a lot of people, though, they lease cars and then they keep leasing it. They never, but by leasing the car, technically I'm not owning it. You're right. But after 6 months, I can buy it if I want outright. Okay. Yeah, it's 10 o'clock. I'd like to thank all of you for being around for the not super chat, for the live stream. And thank you all for your questions and for the fact that you want to listen to me. And I wish you all a great start to the week. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care. Bye.